Salutations, one and all, and welcome to RWBY Revisited. In this installment, let's examine the confrontation in the flashback of Season 6 between Maria and Tock's group. Like we do here, we first need to assess the objectives of each side. Tock and her cohorts here are working for Salem, hunting down and eliminating those who have silver eyes. Now this alone would indicate that the silver eyes are a threat to Salem or her plans in some form, though this has yet to be expounded upon. So Tock's objective is out-and-out murder. Technically, this would count as assassination. Maria, on the other hand, is defending herself from such an act. There's no reason to believe that she has any knowledge of Salem or even why she's being attacked, but her life depends on her ability to neutralize or escape this threat. So this one's for all the marbles. Both sides are playing for keeps, as I don't imagine that Salem would be too thrilled at hearing that Tock had failed if she survived. Cinder has the luxury of being a maiden, so her value is somewhat higher than Tock's, likely sparing her some repercussions. But with the objectives laid out, let's get on to the fight. We begin by following a much younger Maria, crossing a rope bridge in some remote corner of Remnant. If I had to hazard a guess, I would say that this is probably somewhere in Mistral, given the terrain and those gnarled, twisted trees. You don't usually see those in Vale, and it doesn't appear cold enough to be Atlas, and Vacuo is largely desert with ruddy-colored rocks instead of this gray. Maria draws one of her weapons, though, as a gigantic Nevermore is rapidly approaching her position. But let's pause for a moment and get a better look at that weapon. She carries two of these, and they appear to be heavily inspired by Kama, a sickle-like tool and sometimes weapon from ancient Japan. There is a bit of a problem here, and that is that the tip of the weapon curves downward rather drastically. You see, if you were to swing a Kama, it will deliver a piercing strike to the target, given that the point will be directed into the opponent. With this downward curve, Maria would hit with the rounded end of the weapon, not with either the tip or the blade. We do see as she draws it that this does pivot, but in the wrong direction. It stows the tip by flipping it upwards into the main section of the blade, but it doesn't appear to be able to lock into a proper position. Also, that cloak might get in the way. You don't want your arms to get restricted by it when you're trying to fight. But Maria is in an incredibly precarious position on this rickety bridge as a massive winged Grimm is making for her. She draws her second Kama before leaping off of the bridge entirely.
It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for him.
She then hurls one of her weapons at the Nevermore, which does manage to find a hold on it, fortunately for her. But these weapons possess a feature. They have gravity dust inside, which causes them to be drawn towards each other with remarkable force. This has the effect of pulling her upwards while simultaneously forcing the Nevermore down. The distance this covers is also nothing to scoff at. These Kama do have the ability to fire projectiles from the backside of the head, though, and Maria utilizes these to drive back down into her opponent, though she does a pointless spin before doing so. That doesn't add much additional force, if any, so there's really no point. Maria continues to utilize the dust-based function of her weapons though, causing the Nevermore to veer about where she wills it by throwing one comma and then activating the gravity dust in the other. This causes it to be knocked insensate to the ground, though she relaxes far too soon, which is something that we see characters do on a few occasions. I've never understood why that happens. Grimm disintegrate when they die, so if this one isn't fizzling out, then it's still alive and kicking. It rears back and tries to attack her, first with its beak, then its wings, and succeeds in knocking her down and disarming her. The Nevermore then attempts to press its advantage, but Maria counters this by activating her silver eyes, turning it to stone. I have to wonder why she didn't do that in the first place. It could have simply fallen into this ravine, and she could have continued along where she was going. The rope bridge was obviously not a natural formation, and so it was clearly part of a path. Now you're down here, and are going to need to find a way back up just to get to where you were.
This looks strangely familiar.
It's because we've been here before. Going in circles.
That's a fancy trick now, innit? Afraid it comes with a price though, love.
Maria then retrieves her weapons, but we get to see her semblance in action, reflexes, which allows her to get a sense of her surroundings even when she can't see something directly. She can feel that she's about to be attacked and deflects an incoming projectile. So here we see our antagonists proper. Tock enters the scene, and she's the keystone of this group, backed up by 3 fodder minions. Whether these are her own personal crew or some low-life mercenaries she's recently picked up is uncertain.
I don't think you realize who I am.
Of course I do. Or the Grimm Reaper. These are the last 60 seconds of your life.
But she does establish that she's expressly here to kill Maria. So what were you doing down here? Maria was at the top of this gorge and some good distance away as she rode the Nevermore down. You were quite far from your target, so meeting her here is luck. Tock then confirms that she knows exactly who Maria is, and the latter has allowed herself to be surrounded. Not good odds, especially with it being 4 against 1. Even an extremely skilled combatant can be taken down by neophytes if there are enough of them. Tock also winds up a timer set to 1 minute, which coincides with her semblance, which grants her 1 minute of complete invulnerability. As I stated in the Powers tier list video, 1 minute is forever in a fight. I'm not certain people really appreciate that. Split seconds can change the entire encounter, never mind a full minute. Tock makes the first move, slashing towards Maria's face. Normally, I would penalize her for having her second blade so far away from her body and doing nothing, but that is mitigated by the fact that she is literally immune to damage for the time being. Maria stuffs this strike, which had no follow-through with the second blade, though Maria herself has her second weapon in a position where it is very far removed from taking any action. Maria also has an odd choice of weapons to dual wield here. Historically, swords or daggers were the most common choices, as the weight of the weapon is closer to the hand in the vast number of designs, leading to them being more nimble and swift to strike with. You would also have the entire length of the weapon to attack or defend with, as well as typically some form of guard to stop or catch an opponent's weapon, like a crossguard. Maria has 2 kama, which don't have that luxury. This means that she, along with anyone wielding something like axes, maces, hammers, or the like, need to fully commit to the offensive, as it is much more difficult for them to defend, as their weapons are not suited for it. This might be one instance in which I would suggest asymmetrical dual wielding as opposed to symmetrical. Typically, I would rather have both weapons be constructed to be the same if I was using them, but sometimes using 2 different weapons can be better. Tock then thrusts with her other weapon, and Maria redirects it away from herself, though she does release her other weapon for a moment to shift it into a reverse grip. 1. Letting go of your weapon in a fight is a very bad idea. If your enemy pushes you, then you may have just lost it. 2. Reverse grips are a terrible option in the overwhelming majority of cases. It nerfs your reach, range of motion, reaction time, and power. It only becomes viable with very short blades in grappling distance. With a giant kama like this, there is no reason to ever do so. She spins completely around, exposing her back, which Tock could have struck with her other weapon if she'd had more presence of mind. Her 3 goons are just idling about and have yet to even move. I do have to wonder though, if Tock is invulnerable, why not just have a bunch of explosives on your person, arm a pair of grenades, and then just rush your target to catch them in the blast? You can't be harmed, and aside from attempting to escape, they have no counter. Equip your minions with devices to capture or slow your target, and there's very little that one could do. Maria then leaps up as Tock fumbles before striking her and losing her grip as she hits her invulnerable target. Physics would dictate that if you do not break or force something that you're striking to move, then the force you applied will be redirected back into you, hence the loss of Maria's grip. She had no way of knowing what her opponent's semblance did, and had no way to prepare for it. Tock is about theatrics, it would seem, as she doesn't simply tank hits, swatting aside Maria's next attack with her elbow before delivering a casual slash. She really should just grapple her if she wasn't going to use the explosives strategy. Take your target to the ground and strike her until her aura breaks, while you are immune to damage. Tock then delivers an incredibly overblown kick that Maria should have seen coming, and the Grimm Reaper is knocked backwards towards the henchman, though she does draw her lost weapon back to herself. She pulls off a maneuver where she deflects 2 projectiles from the only one armed with a rifle, though he only fires twice. If all 3 of you were armed with fully automatic weapons, then this fight would have played out in your favor, most likely. But Cleaver Goon is up next, and he telegraphs his attack so strongly that a newborn could see it coming, and Maria bats it aside as he loses his grip on his weapon, then strikes him about the head, though it appears as though she ended up striking him with the haft of her kama. Another reason I'd prefer a sword. You've got the whole blade to work with there. With something like this, the shaft is much less effective than the head, and given the size of her kama, an enemy can get too close for her to effectively strike them with it. Rifle Goon shoots at Maria some more, though his aim is pretty atrocious, and Cleaver Goon isn't dead, as he draws another weapon and begins to fire as well. These have a fire rate lower than a First World War era rifle though, and Maria easily deflects these projectiles. She manages to close the distance with Cleaver Goon, delivering a blow to his head before kicking him away. Maria, they're playing for keeps. You need to do the same. Go for the vitals. She then throws one weapon at Rifle Goon, who can't get a clear shot because Maul Goon has now decided to move on Maria's other side. Historically, Mauls weren't that large. You don't need size. you need density. Sometimes they were even made entirely of wood. Riflegoon takes a tumble while Maulgoon winds up a slow swing, giving Maria time to use her gravity dust to draw herself to her thrown weapon. The force between these weapons is rather inconsistent. Sometimes it only gets pulled towards Maria, while other times she gets drawn to it. Perhaps there's a way for her to manipulate just how hard the attraction is. But Tock has not made a move again, and is wasting her time on her invulnerability. If you were going to fight like this, why not simply engage normally and activate your semblance just before you ran out of aura to maximize your time with it? 1% is as good as 100 when it's a time-based ability. Maria then uses this dust ability again to quickly get behind Maulgoon, but somehow clips her strike directly through his weapon to hit him. Look at the effect showing her strike's arc. To swing in that way, her own weapon would have had to have passed through the haft of his maul. But he goes sprawling, and we can see Riflegoon getting back up. Maria isn't being efficient in disposing of these guys at all. Only now does Tock rejoin the fight, after having wasted considerable time. We do get a good look at her teeth here, and can see that they have been replaced with metal ones. Probably saves on dentist visits, but I do wonder who did that procedure. Tock is wasting yet more time by posing like this though. Your semblance is incredibly strong, but its duration is the drawback. Stop wasting your advantage. Maria draws her right comma back, and the hook of her blade forces Tock's weapon down as a result. She probably should have put the other one between her enemy and herself as defense, as out there it's doing nothing. Riflegoon has taken up Cleavergoon's weapon though, and is now rushing Maria with it. Likely, with the aid of her semblance, Maria effortlessly avoids him, leaping over him before batting aside the weapon and striking him across the head. There are a pair of smaller blades on the reverse side of Maria's commas, but those too are hooked downwards. She then kicks this guy away before Tock re-engages, and deflects one swing from the Faunus before eating a spinning heel kick. This does show that while Maria's semblance is useful, it doesn't guarantee that she'll detect every incoming attack. Tock then misses an opportunity to strike her with the blade in her right hand, moving it around Maria before slashing at her. We do get a look at Tock's weapons here, and she is asymmetrically dual-wielding. It's not a huge difference, but the weapon in her left hand has a broader blade than the one in her right, indicating that she may be left-handed. Maria's aura holds though, and she manages to evade Tock's next swing before blocking the third. She manages to throw her enemy's weapon aside, but fails to keep her guard up and takes another kick to her midsection as consequence. Feet seem to be more effective than blades in this fight for some reason. We see Maria's aura flare up though, and Riflegoon has recovered, though he and Tock only watch on as she does something rather peculiar. Her weapons orbit her for some time before joining at their bases to form a staff-like weapon. We also see that Maulgoon and Cleavergoon were apparently done in by kicks. This staff, though, has the weapon's blades facing in opposite directions. This means that if one could supposedly strike, the other is backwards. Given their prominent hook-like nature, I would be concerned about it catching on my legs. Maria then manages to block the one remaining henchman's strike before bashing him across the back of the head. Then Tock moves again, and Maria parries her first strike before ducking beneath the second. I do like staff-like polearms though. It's almost like dual-wielding, as you can strike with either end, but both Tock and the remaining goon strike downwards at the same time, meaning that Maria can block both of them at once. Bad move on their part. Poor form. I do really like Maria's move here though, as she strikes both opponents at once. Brownie points awarded. The minion is then struck across the legs and falls, and Maria then moves to engage Tock. The Faunus here delivers a thrust that would require a follow-up from her other weapon to be delayed, and Maria parries this. Maria then goes on the offensive, but Tock stops this with an X block, though this one isn't quite as bad as most tend to be, as she's trapped her opponent's weapon between hers, as opposed to them being in the same place. Tock then does a telegraphed spin as Maria twirls her weapon for some reason, and Tock really is going for style points instead of effectiveness, as look at that nonsense. Putting your other weapon around your head like that does next to nothing, and would require a large motion to get back into an effective stance. But Maria strikes this for no discernible reason, and Tock loses her grip as Maria presses her right hand weapon going flying from her grasp. Strangely though, its trajectory is odd, and she can catch it immediately. She does still manage to keep Maria at bay, so kudos for that. Maria then leaps again, and I dislike leaping because it puts you on a fixed trajectory. Your assailant will know where you're going and when you're going to be there. This allows Tock to dodge her clumsy strike before rushing her again. Tock then manages to bite the haft of Maria's weapon, splintering it before delivering a headbutt and shattering her mask. What is the bite force of this woman? With those gnashers, she could probably take a chunk out of Superman's arm. But it would seem as though Maria's aura has run out, as Tock uses this opportunity to slash her across the eyes, destroying them and blinding her. This is just in time for her though, as her semblance runs out and her aura breaks. If she'd been more effective and taken this seriously, then she'd still have some time left.
You know, the only reason my master wants you dead is because of your eyes.
Maria tries shooting at her, but given that she can't see, Tock can easily avoid this. But more interestingly, Tock states directly that her master wants her dead because of her eyes. The correct term would be mistress, but that aside, this does confirm that she's working directly under Salem. Given that this was quite some time ago, this couldn't have been Cinder. I don't even think that she would have been born yet. So I have to wonder how this one ended up under Salem's command. What was she promised? Maria then hurls her weapon wildly, as she's too overcome by the loss of her sight. We humans are sight-based creatures after all. Suddenly going blind wouldn't be something easy to adjust to, especially not while someone is actively trying to kill you. Maria then manages to find her second comma though, and activates the gravity dust, causing it to stab into Tock's back before she slashes at her. Unfortunately for Tock, that is the downside of her powerful semblance, is that she's left vulnerable after it wears off. But that concludes this fight. Tock played with her food too much, and her henchmen were taken down by kicks more than weapons. I do have to wonder how Maria managed to get out of that ravine while blind, as she didn't get her cybernetic eyes until later. All in all though, this was kind of a mixed bag. I don't know how Tock's group managed to find Maria here, as she was quite some distance away before the fight. I doubt that they had control over the Nevermore, as Grimm answer only to Salem or Cinder through her connection to her. But what did you think of this fight? I found it interesting, even with some of its flaws. Did you think Maria lived up to her status as a legendary huntress? Or did her display here leave you wanting? Leave your thoughts in the comments below, leave a like on this video if you're so inclined, and subscribe to see more. I would like to thank you for watching, and may you all have a weapon in each hand.